Welcome to On the Brink with Andi Simon. It's always such a pleasure to bring you a new podcast. I do love sharing with you, my audience, whether you're watching or you're listening, people who can help you be a little like an anthropologist. Can you see through a fresh lens what's going on all around you? How can you convert that into some innovations, perhaps, for how you're running your business or what you're doing in your business or what your customers are changing? And all of these things are affecting you, but somehow, if you don't see it and feel it, remember we decide with the heart and the eyes, then we can't think about it and actually make things happen. But I have a hunch that these fast changing times, the fourth industrial revolution, are beginning to be a challenge for you. We can focus on AI or machine learning, we can worry about jobs, but in fact, the culture that we're in, whether you're in the North American culture or anywhere in the world, are beginning to change, adapting to new technologies. Now, remember, I don't know whether it was 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, but sometime a long time ago, we invented fire and it changed the way we cooked. And everything else changed too. So this is not the first time we've had a major transformation. Let me introduce my guest today. He's smiling. Robin Hills is a gentleman who's in London, and I'm in New York, and we're enjoying our conversation. It's our second one. We did one back in January 2025. And he said, can I come back and talk some more about what I'm discovering in the world of emotional intelligence, which is his expertise, and the world of AI. Robin, thank you for joining me today.
Andy, it's a pleasure to be back on the show with you, and what a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Well, I think it's always fun to continue the conversation. For those who may not have watched Robin's earlier one, I'll put it up certainly on the blog post. But his specialty is emotional intelligence. And he's focusing always on the proper use of emotion by people by supporting personality and behavior in business and to increase the productivity and success at work. His experience ranges over 40 years. He looks much younger than that. And he works with small startups to large multinationals in project management and line management. And his educational programs on resilience and emotional intelligence are used in educational establishments in South Africa and India. And he's teaching over 500,000 learners in 200 countries. I am always honored to have people like Robin here to share with you what's next and how we can better understand the fast changes that are taking place. Now, one last thing before I have Robin tell you a little more about himself. Humans hate change. They hate me. They bring me in, put me in a closet, lock me up, and say, that's enough. We don't have to do anything. Your brain is designed to protect you from the unexpected, the leopard or the tiger around the bush that might get you for dinner. So, how do we overcome our resistance to the new or unknown? It's by listening to people like Robin. Robin, thanks again for being here. Tell the listener about who's Robin. What's Robin been doing over the last several months? And, what are we going to talk about today? Please.
Well, first of all, I think we ought to talk about emotional intelligence and what it is and what it means. And then let's talk about it, as you've so eloquently described, its role in terms of making us human, making us specifically different from other intelligences, particularly the artificial intelligence that we're facing.
Yes.
So let's define it that way. But before we start, there is a small change I'd like to add into the introduction that you had to say about me. Unfortunately, it's not 40 years. That's changed since that was written. It's 45 plus years.
Then you must update your bio, my friend.
I must do. I must do. I must make some changes there, but everything else is perfectly adequate and exactly the same.
But I don't think I would have known, and I'm glad you clarified it. But let's go into this topic for today. What is, you've been an experiential, an emotional intelligence expert. Tell the folks who are listening or watching, perhaps for the first time, what does that mean? One would think it's pretty ubiquitous, but it's not. What is emotional
No, it's
intelligence?
not. It's not. It's not. I think the important thing to stress here is that emotional and intelligence are two words that are put together and they seem to be in conflict with each other. How can you be emotional and how can you be intelligent? Well, the thing is with emotional intelligence, it's about being smart with your feelings. It's about utilizing your cognitive intelligence in order to interpret the data that is your emotions. And then how do you use that data to make good, authentic decisions and build up quality relationships with people with a view to taking action? That is emotional intelligence in a nutshell. The difficulty with that is it's a very, very complex construct. And to be emotionally intelligent, you have to really work with your emotional data continually. So it's not a case of doing it, oh, first thing on a Monday morning, now I'm emotionally intelligent for the rest of the week. You've got to continually work at it because our emotions are physiological and psychological changes to our body, our heart, as you talked about, and our brains, in order that we can react with our environment in the most appropriate way. So, whether there's a tiger or a leopard hiding behind the bush, we need to be able to react to that in an appropriate manner.
Well, I don't think people realize that when something happens in a conversation with a colleague, or, somehow you're trying to adapt your organization to a client request, or the emotions can get in the way of thinking and dealing with what has to get done intelligently. And what happens is the emotions take over and all kinds of cortisol and stuff are running around your brain. And often your response is unnecessarily emotional, not necessarily intelligent. And somehow, Robin said, you don't wake up on Monday and say, I'm going to be intelligent this week on how I manage my emotions. But you do need to become really aware of how to manage those relationships so the emotions don't take you into territory that's dangerous or unnecessary, not intelligent at all. Am I correct, sir?
Oh, absolutely. And look, let me give you a really good example. Um, I often get very contentious emails that come through from clients and suppliers and people that want to take money out of my bank account for various reasons, and I need to respond to them in an appropriate manner.
Uh-huh.
And often, when I'm tired or when I'm frustrated or when I'm facing a number of different challenges, I may react in an inappropriate way. So, what I have found to be incredibly useful, and it's absolutely fascinating how it works. I take my email, I cut and paste it and put it into ChatGPT or into Copilot, and I say, can you rephrase this in an empathetic manner? And more often than not, some of the outputs are absolutely brilliant. And I think to myself, yeah, okay, that's really how I wanted to say it. So I'll cut and paste it, put it in the email, and then change it a little bit to Robinize it, and then press the send button. So rather than actually emotionally splurging out an answer and then pressing the send button in anger, I'm actually sending a much more emotionally intelligent response. Now, sometimes I put it into ChatGPT or Copilot or any of the other AI um, tools, and I'll look at the output and think, no, that's not what I want to say. And I go back to the original email and send that. But at least I've had a sanity check put in the system.
But let's talk a little bit about those emails. The challenge I have, whether it's a text or an email, is that I don't really know emotionally what the sender meant. And I'm an anthropologist, and Anthro 101, data out of context has no meaning. And so here I got information from somebody that I respond to with emotion, maybe happy or sad, maybe angry or otherwise, only to realize that I really didn't know what they meant. I have a client situation, and I was meeting with them we have a leadership academy, and the client said, I have to talk to you about my colleague who sent us, late at night, a very, very long email, and it was extremely aggravating. It spoiled my whole night's sleep, and it spoiled me the next morning. And and the other woman who got it was really angry. What should I do? I said, first you have to park the emotion because it will do you no good at all to swing back. You could write the nastiest email back. The best thing you could do is send one back that says, thank you. Diffuse it. Try and take away what you don't really understand. They probably didn't understand when they were sending it. And you're smiling at me, and I know that there's some wisdom here about, now that wasn't to me, so I'm advising a client or somebody else about how to diminish the emotions, find a better time to discuss it intelligently, and take charge of what's not a very good situation. Your thoughts?
Well, firstly, I would actually ask the client why they're looking at their emails late at night. They should be relaxing with their family and preparing
Perfect.
themselves for a good night's sleep.
Yes, and I too shut them down and stop looking. I go read a book, anything except to look at work. You're right. Go ahead. More.
Yeah, sure. I think the other important thing is when we send an email, we don't know the emotional state of the person who's going to be receiving it. Now, if they've had a bad day and they're feeling frustrated and they're feeling anxious or they're feeling angry or whatever unpleasant emotion that will drive more destructive behaviors, then they're likely to read that email through that lens. Now, if you send it at a different time of day, or they happen, or you happen to catch them in a state where they feel a lot more pleasant, they'll interpret it in a different way. So I think we've just got to bear in mind that the communications we send need to be as crystal clear as they possibly can be. But as you rightly say, Andy, take the emotion out if at all possible. Keep the email as objective as possible. And quite honestly, I go back to saying that if it is a contentious email, just drop it into ChatGPT or ask your spouse
Uh,
or ask a colleague, is this an appropriate email for me to be sending? Talk to people and see what they think.
yeah.
You don't have to accept what they're saying, but it just gives you a reality check. The other thing that I would suggest is sleep on it. Write the email, put it into draft, and then have a look at it the next day when you're refreshed. And if the intensity of the emotion is exactly the same, and the email is saying exactly what you want, then press the send button.
Now, the other thing, and I think we shouldn't forget, is to pick up the phone and say, let's talk. How about a cup of coffee? Now, what is it about in person relationships and conversations that can transform? Clearly, someone had something irritating to get off his chest, and it was received properly or improperly, not as a suitable response, but as something that was really an axe in the back. And now we don't really know what is intended or what was, the context for the reception. But conversations, to be intelligent, to be emotionally in control and let the wisdom take on, the wisdom it's needed, you might just want to talk to somebody in person, like, hi, can we talk about this? What did you mean? I mistaken what you meant, and I didn't realize that's what you were considering. And I will tell you, I often pick up the phone. I just got your email. I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's talk. Oh, I thought it was so clear. I said, I don't really know what we're going on here. And this gets back to human interaction, conversations, and relationships, doesn't it?
Oh, most definitely. Uh, First and foremost, I would say that the ideal interaction is a face-to-face interaction where you're both in the same room, because you can actually pick up on not only the tonality of the voice, the facial expressions,
Yeah.
but this sounds quite disgusting, and I don't mean it to be that way. You can smell the other person,
Yes, you
and we give off chemicals, we give off pheromones, and they can be pleasant, quite unpleasant at times. but it's part of our interaction and it's part of our relationships with another person. And to actually physically be in the same room as them means that you're going to develop a better relationship. And as you said at the introduction, Andy, we change each other's brains, and we do that through conversation. And the way in which we are interacting with somebody is building up an empathetic relationship with them, better face to face. The next and the second best way to do it is to do what we're doing now, to talk on Zoom. At least I can see your
My
face and I
reaction,
can see
yes.
your expressions and I can see you smiling. So I know when anything lands appropriately.
Yeah.
I can see it through the way in which it's being received. Now, the interesting thing is nobody can see what's happening with the rest of the body. So I'm sitting here with a nice business shirt on, but tracksuit bottoms, which is not congruent in terms of business, but you wouldn't know that unless I actually shared it with you. So we got to bear that in mind. And then the telephone is good. It does take out some of the cues from body language, but you can pick up expression in the tonality and
Yes.
the pace of the voice. And it is better than nothing at all. But email is so sterile. It is a very, very good, very valuable communication tool. And you can build up a relationship through email, but it's not the best.
Yeah. I always worry about people who are finding their spouse online, but that's another conversation. One of the things I want to make an analogy to and migrate us to the AI world is that you said something important. Telephone. Before we had Zoom, we would talk on the phone. I had a phone call the other day with someone in Hawaii who wanted to discuss something with me. And I was fine, but I was trying to imagine at least her facial expressions. And she was zoomed out, she said. I said, I understand, but I also can only hear you on the phone. We didn't do a FaceTime, which is another option. But in the absence of that, I had to imagine how she was receiving my thoughts and how I was receiving hers. It was interesting. Then we come to this world of Zoom, and during the pandemic, thank goodness for the Zooms and all the similar ones. And then we've come to this new world where we're talking to AI, robots, other kinds of different things. Not sure how, I mean, I've been named my chat GPT, my teammate, and it's a he. Someone said, why is it a he? I said, because I can yell at him and not feel uncomfortable about it. Oh, really? I said, but I expect from him, the wisdom. But here's the thing: we're moving into new communication methodologies. And I'd love us, with your background in emotional intelligence, where does that take us emotionally and intelligently? You said at the beginning to read the data, our emotions, intelligently to respond. And so I see something, I feel something, and then my head goes to make sense of it and do a response. And now we're doing it in a really different world. Help us, help the audience understand, what are you seeing? How do we do this?
Oh, I don't think I can answer that question very simply with half a dozen succinct sentences. But
Ah,
look, let me share something with you and let me share something with your listeners that everybody will have completely forgotten about, or perhaps not even experienced. When I started my career, which was back in the early 80s, we didn't have any of this technology. The telephone sat on the wall, and you actually had to dial a number in to speak to somebody on the other end.
yes,
You hadn't had any chance of ever seeing that person when you're talking to them on the telephone.
yes.
Televisions were huge, great monstrosities. Oh, we'd only just recently had the introduction of color television.
That was a big deal.
It was, yeah. Compact discs hadn't been invented.
Yeah.
If we needed to communicate with somebody, we only had one option, and that was the telephone. We couldn't see them face to face. The only other option was to write a letter to them,
Yes.
put it in the post, and they wouldn't receive it until a day or two later. So we actually had to plan our communications in a completely different way. The first computers came on the market, and they were mainly really for simple programming and for games, game technology.
Mhm.
And they were very, very pixelated. And they had wonderful memory capacity. Ooh, 32K. Ah,
Oh, that was an
look,
upgrade.
look how the world has changed in 45 years. What's it going to be like in 45 years? We have no clues. What we've got to do is to retain the essence around what our humanity is in order to adapt around the changes as they unfold. And look at me, look at you, Andy. We've actually had to embrace these technologies as we've got older. And we actually have to admit that the younger generation are a lot quicker, a lot faster, and a lot more adaptive around it than we are. But there are many, 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 many people of our age who just shut everything down and say they're not interested. We've kept abreast of it. And I
You and I
find it
are, but we are curious, and we sustain an
yes.
openness, and that curiosity is taking us into new places. But as you're, whether it's for folks like our age or youngers, you're seeing a major transformation going on. And you and I were talking a little bit about our new, you talked about putting it into AI and getting a better thing, but sometimes it doesn't help you. Well, how do we take our emotional intelligence? We get angry at AI? Do we find the data there unintelligent and say you messed up? I mean, is it changing us? Do we change ourselves? What are you thinking?
Well, I think we've got to admit that it is having an impact on us. And you know, this morning you and I spoke about this before we came on air. This morning I was asking ChatGPT to create three badges of for me: a blue one, a red one, and a green one, each with a different symbol, each with a different word on it, and to keep them consistent and on and the same size. No matter what I put in there, no matter how I generated the prompt through ChatGPT to help itself, it could not and would not do it. So I, I spent well over 2 hours working on this because it is vitally important for me moving into next year strategically. But uh, you know, I was appreciative of the fact that I was getting more and more and more frustrated with it. Now I can do a number of things. I can either accept the AI slop that it's generated and work around it, which ultimately I have done. It's 95% what I need, and I can tweak it at some point later. Or I could shut the computer down and try it at a later stage. That's an option. Or I could kick the computer and knock it into smithereens to release some tension and frustration. But whilst it might feel cathartic, it's not really helpful at all. And I think the best approach is a combination of one and two. You know, persevere, know when enough is enough, and then shut everything down and move away from it. My wife kept coming in and out whilst I was doing it, and it was very, very tempting to take out my frustrations on her because she can be incredibly irritating talking to me about excuse me, the birds in the garden or what we need to do for Christmas and these sort of things, which are not relevant at that particular time. But that is not an emotionally intelligent response. I need to look at managing my emotions in an appropriate way, keeping the relationship I've got with my wife, even if we'd have had a few harsh words around my frustrations, it wouldn't have destroyed a very, very strong relationship. But I don't want to put her through that. So I think the thing to do is just to remain in control, remain calm, and make the best decisions. And sometimes these decisions are not necessarily the best, but make the best of a bad job. Make a decision. If it's right, stick with it. If it's wrong, change it.
Now, do you find in your interactions with the world of AI, but first of all, do you go around to do you go to Claude or Perplexity or Chat and Gemini and see which one gives you the answers you're looking for, as if you were going to different creative idea people, or as if you shop around in the marketplace?
I think the option there is to find one that you like and find one that works for you. I've found that Copilot does certain things that ChatGPT won't do, and ChatGPT will do certain things that Copilot doesn't do.
Yeah.
And then Gemini will do certain things that neither of those two do. And I've also found that Gemini is now starting to be very restrictive because it wants people to pay for its services. And I think, no, you're not good enough for me to pay for the services. I've already paid a subscription to ChatGPT. You're a bit late in my world. So thank you very much. I'll just use you for whatever I need and move on. But there are some really, really good tools out there. And what frightens me, Andy, what really concerns me is that there may be a brilliant tool out there that I haven't even heard of.
Yeah.
So when certain people say, "Oh, have you tried Open Art AI or have you tried Nano Banana?" I'll think, "No, I haven't tried it. What does it do? What am I missing?" And I'll go away and try it. And if it works, brilliant. And if it doesn't work, okay, at
Yeah.
least I've made a decision around it based on the time that I used it.
When you think about what you just said, though, it is no different than shopping the marketplace for a solution provider. You know, you may go to others who are lookalikes, a red ocean of bloody competition where they all are pretty similar. They're taking the same data. The question is, who can do a better job of analyzing that data and providing you back with what you're looking for? And the second part is, like you, I sort of developed a relationship to my chat teammate, which is a bit weird. I use Copilot like you do, and I find it does do different things. I find that Google I never go to anymore. It pisses me off, to tell you the truth, because I still have to build my website so that it,
Emotional intelligence.
yeah, that's right. And I haven't tried Claude or Perplexity because how many hours in the day are there to go shopping around for a solution? It still requires me, regardless of who I've asked the question to really look at the answer and decide whether or not it reflects what I want to say. I often will humanize it on either Surfer or Just Done. And I'm not quite sure I like this humanizing. I'll put it into Grammarly to take them all and make them grammatically correct. And then I still have to make them mine. So it is a interesting manufacturing process of getting ideas turned into communication in a way that you can post it on whatever you want, your blog or LinkedIn or any of the social. Where do you post anymore? And then make sure that it reflects what it is you wanted to say the way you thought you wanted to say it. No different than using my freelancers that I had for years who were okay, but I still had to do the same things. And so now at least I don't have to pay so much. But or wait so long. And I can get angry without feeling emotionally unintelligent. I don't- I do. But so it's a different relationship where emotions and intelligence work in different ways. Am I crazy?
No, I think what you have just eloquently described there is your interaction with a series of tools.
Yeah.
What what artificial intelligence is a series of tools. They are there to make us more efficient, nothing more.
Uh-huh.
Um, yes, our jobs are going to change because they can do things far more efficiently and far more effectively. And if you can get it right, far more accurately than humans can. But I think what we've got to do is to remember the essence of what makes us human and remember the fact that these are tools. So part of being human is we're social animals. So
Yes.
let's go out into the big wide world. I love networking. I love going out and meeting new people and hearing about their experiences. And often through the conversation, they will say to me, "Oh, have you tried this new AI tool?" And I will say, "No, I haven't. I haven't heard about it. What is it that you are using it for? How do you find it? How does it work? What do you like about it? What doesn't it do?" And then I'll take that information and I'll go away and I will um, I I'll take that information and I will go away and I'll try it for myself and see, does it work for me? If it does, great, I'll add it into the toolkit. If it doesn't work, what have I lost?
Yep.
10, 15 minutes? And I'll go back to the person perhaps at a later stage and say, "Hey, I tried that tool. I just couldn't get it to work for me." And more often than not, they'll say, "Oh, you didn't do this or you didn't do that." Or, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it does have its foibles and its limitations."
On
But
the other hand, though, they've embraced it and co-branded themselves with it in a way. And so their personal identity is now caught up in their affection for, perplexity or something. And they are advocates for it. It's an interesting model for who am I and who do I turn to for the wisdom I need to be a relevant human. You said something before I want to dig into. Don't lose our humanness. And at times I scratch my head and say, oh my goodness, who are we as humans? Look at this animal. What is it that we are all about today? Your thoughts.
look, let me just change that.
Go ahead. For those of you who may be watching our video, you might notice that Robin has a different background. His computer died. So as we're talking about this new age of the world that we're in, old stuff still falls apart sometimes and changes the venue. For those of you who are listening, you won't know the difference. But we were really into the conversation of what makes us human. And I'd like him to dig a little further into it because there are so many profound questions coming about as a result of this new technology that's just transformative. So, Robin, please continue your thinking, please.
Well, you asked me the question, who are we? And I'd just like to reflect that back to everybody who is listening or watching this podcast. And the fundamental question is, who am I? What is my purpose here? What is my relationship with God, the universe? Why am I on the earth at this particular present moment in time? These are big, big, big questions. Now, as human beings, we will search for meaning in our lives. And I think this is a fundamental question that AI will have no comprehension of, does not understand, and will not be searching for meaning. AI is not sentient, it doesn't have self awareness. Quite honestly, if it does develop self awareness, it will be completely different to the self awareness that I have, the self awareness that you have, Andy, and the self awareness that your listeners have. And that's because we have human brains made up of carbon atoms and biochemicals, whereas a brain of a robot or a computer or artificial intelligence is silicon based and ultimately will be quantum based. So we are in a position here as human beings to actually question our lives. What is our purpose? What is it that our life is there for? To give us meaning.
Ah, that is a very profound both question and statement. And I do think, as an anthropologist, I've been fascinated that somewhere in our history, 50,000 years ago, we had a quantum leap in our brains. And instead of things having like an AI bot, having a thing, it became meaningful. And so instead of us just being an animal, We're animals who can think about the stories in our minds, the experiences that we have had, about the illusions of our reality. We can create all kinds of new ideas that have meaning, including what is our meaning. And that becomes a profound and unique possibility for us if we pay attention to it and don't simply slide through life becoming meaningless and angry. Because the AI is not going away, but neither is your ability to create meaning out of yourself and purpose. This is such an interesting conversation. Are you spending time yourself in a diary, a gratitude diary, or otherwise, reflecting on who am I?
Well, most definitely. I think it's one of the key questions that I have as really where have I come from? Because, like you, Andrea, like all your listeners, we've had a childhood. We have memories that span, oh, many, 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 many years. We've had interactions that are very meaningful for us. We've forgotten so much. But our memories, our experiences are fundamental to who we are and what we are. My memories will never, ever be replicated ever again anywhere else within the universe. I can guarantee that 100% because nobody else has the pleasure of being Robin Hills. So, how do I make the most of those memories? How do I make the most of those experiences? And really, the big question now for me is what legacy can I leave? And what good can I leave within the world that will be a part of me that will live on when I'm no longer around?
Oh, this is getting very deep and profound. And how are you beginning to frame your legacy? Is it on what you have accomplished so far, or is it an intentional opportunity today to add value innovatively to yourself and the folks who are surrounding you? Your
I
thoughts?
think I think it's a bit of both. I think it's very much a case of what is it that I can do to make everybody else's lives better, and the way in which I do that is through the medium of emotional intelligence and helping people to understand that they are emotional beings and emotions are there to provide us with information around how we're interacting with the world so that we can then make the world a better place. And that is what modern humanity is all about. I'm not worried about the leopard. I'm not worried about the tiger behind the bush. I am worried about certain other things that I have very little control over that are going to impact upon me. But it's up to me to make the most of that and to do that in an adapted, uh, innovative, and creative way that is beyond the capabilities of artificial intelligence.
I love the conversation that we're having because, in a way, you're putting a stake in the ground and saying, I can use that tool, but it's just a tool. And now, what I bring to that tool and my legacy for the subsequent generations is my ability to add value to it, to add intelligence to it, to begin to add emotion to it, to begin to get it so that it helps us rise, thrive, and lift others with us. It isn't a thing. Without us, it doesn't exist. So somehow I have to now embrace it and adapt a little bit, perhaps, or take what I am and all my experiences and make it relevant and then make it valuable for others. You know, we're just about ready to wrap us up. Are there one or two or three things you'd like our listeners or viewers to remember? They often remember the end, and I'm going to remember the conversation now as something extremely valuable that'll set up the stage for what we've talked about up till now. But your thoughts, a couple of things you want to leave them with?
Well, I think the important thing here to set us aside from artificial intelligence is the fact that we have the ability to use our judgment based around our values. We have the ability to innovate and to adapt and create. we have this wonderful ability and this wonderful need to interact with other human beings through our social interactions. And we get our motivation from them. We're not going to get our motivation from the robots. And we also have this ability to ask these deep, profound questions. And it's all of these together which gives us an ability to be entrepreneurial, to do things differently, and to change the world. So these are some of the important factors that really I want to leave the listener to be thinking about. How are all of these components wrapped up in your current role within the work that you do? Because if you can identify those, you are going to future-proof yourself. Now, the world is changing. Change is a fundamental part of what it is and what we do. I have a range of change management online courses that I've been working on, and I've had to adapt and change them as artificial intelligence has come in. But I think the one of the biggest changes that I've put in this year is the fact that I've been working with a lady called Marie-Claude Lessard, who is a French Canadian. And she has been translating my courses, or three of my courses on change management, into Canadian French, which is something that I cannot do. AI can do it, but it's not very good. And what Marie Claude is capable of doing is putting the human element into it. And I'm absolutely delighted because it means that my courses are now available to a much wider audience than those who purely speak and communicate in English.
I love it. Robin, it's always a great pleasure to have you on our show. I know our listeners and viewers and those who follow you are going to be very intrigued by the passion and the purpose and the mission that you've set forth. And I think we're going to continue our conversation maybe before the next year, but it is a time for us to be reflective, to understand what we're creating, what we want to leave behind for a better place to be. And I think this is exciting opportunities that you couldn't have made up. This is not something that we sort of walked around saying, I want to create an AI that I can do this. We knew we had a lot of data. The question is, what do we do with it all? And now all of a sudden we can do all kinds of interesting things. If they'd like to reach you, what's the best place to find you?
You can find me at my website, ei4change.com. That's EI number change. Sorry,
Number
EI
four.
number four
Four.
dot change. Sorry, let me say that again. ei4change.com. That's the EI, the number four change.com. And if you want to contact me, I'm available through LinkedIn and through other social media channels. So look out for me through EI for Change.
Uh, I think this has been just great fun. I appreciate you coming. For all of my listeners and my viewers, thank you. Remember, you've created a podcast here with us together. It was ranked 18th among the top 100 podcasts on the topic of change. So today's topic has been very timely to expand our thinking about what's coming, how do we adapt to it. Humans are extremely facile, very agile. Don't underestimate curiosity. Push, learn. You don't know where it's going to take you. I often visualize this as a door that opens. You can stay here or you can walk through it. And then you might say, I should have stayed on the other side, but you will never know unless you go through it. No regrets. Enjoy. My books are all on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and elsewhere. And our books are going to be I'm going to add another book come April 2026. It's called Rethink Retirement. And it's not the end, it's the beginning. And in it, I have 30 folks who I've interviewed, among many others, who will share their stories with you about how they had to rethink retirement. It's a really interesting time. I almost want to retire the word retirement. In any event, come again, and it's always fun to share. Have a great day. Enjoy. Remember, take your observations, turn them into innovations. Be a little anthropologist, and you'll find the world opens up for you in entirely new ways. Goodbye, Robin. Take care. Thanks again. Bye
It's
bye
been
now.
a pleasure, Andy. Thank you. Bye.